Welcome to part 3 of the series, which takes a deep dive into the details of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. In the first video, we established the fact that the people who lived in Satilla Shores were on high alert. The video showed that the people who lived in the neighborhood started a Facebook group aimed at alerting others in the community of suspicious activity and suspicious people. The second video showed that Travis, Greg, and Larry English had a history with Mr. Arbery. Larry English, the owner of the home at 220 Satilla Drive, called the police on Arbery 2 times in the past. The second video also showed that Travis had a history with Mr. Arbery. Moving forward, we will now look at the actions of the McMicheals on the day that Mr. Arbery was killed.
The lead investigator in the death of Ahmaud Arbery took the stand in Thursday's preliminary hearing. Between 911 logs, home surveillance video, witness statements, and cell phone video from one of the defendants, he says his team with the GBI was able to piece together what happened to the 25-year-old that day. Surveillance video from across the street obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution shows the house under construction. Around 1:04 in the afternoon, you see Ahmaud Arbery go into the house. Motion-sensitive cameras inside the house capture Arbery wandering around, walk out, and then go behind the home. In the video around 1:08, you see a neighbor walk in front of 219 Satilla and call police.
There's a guy in the house right now. It's a house under construction.
And you said someone's breaking into it right now?
No, it's all open. It's under construction.
30 seconds into the call, he tells the dispatcher Arbery is now running down the street.
And he's running right now. There he goes right now.
Okay, what is he doing?
He's running down the street.
The lead investigator on the case said further down Satilla Road, Greg McMicheals was standing in his yard when he says Ahmaud Arbery ran past their home. According to police reports, McMicheals said he and his son got their guns, got in their truck, and drove down Satilla Drive toward Burford Drive to pursue Arbery. When they reached the intersection of homes in Satilla Drive, the senior McMicheals says they saw Arbery running down a street called Burford Drive. According to the lead investigator, the McMicheals catch up with Arbery and yell for him to stop. The other suspect in the case, Roddy Bryan, is outside his house at 307 Burford Road at this point, when Arbery and a truck he recognizes from the neighborhood passes his home on Burford.
So then he yells, "You got him." He doesn't get a response. Mr. Bryan, according to his statement, then goes into his residence, gets the keys to his truck, comes out and cranks up his truck with the intention of assisting in the pursuit.
At this point, investigators say Greg McMicheals got out of his truck to confront Arbery. Arbery is running back towards Satilla, which would lead him right out of the neighborhood.
According to Greg McMicheals and Travis McMicheals' statement, Greg McMicheals comes back to Travis McMicheals' truck and tells him, go back, back up, trying to encourage Travis McMicheals to back the vehicle up and engage Mr. Arbery.
It's at this point Roddy Bryan pulls out of his driveway onto the road to block Ahmaud Arbery. Investigators say Arbery is able to go around the truck. It's also at this point that Greg McMicheals goes back to the truck, gets into the bed of it, and Travis McMicheals drive up Burford to Zellwood Drive. The lead investigators say they had the intention to loop around and catch back up with Arbery at the intersection of Holmes and Satilla. GBI investigators say at this point, Bryan admitted to trying to block Arbery several more times with his truck. Investigators say they also found evidence that at some point, Bryan hit Arbery with his truck.
At this point, Mr. Arbery is heading back the way he's come, which would lead him out of the Satilla Shores neighborhood. Mr. Bryan makes statements that he continues to try to block in Mr. Arbery. Mr. Arbery takes a right turn onto Holmes Road, and Mr. Bryan is actually overshoots him going Satilla.
Investigator Dial testified that Bryan remaneuvered his truck to follow Arbery down Holmes Road, but at some point Arbery stopped. Dial says Arbery saw the McMicheals truck turn off of Zellwood Drive onto Holmes Road and drive towards him.
So you got one vehicle coming one way down Holmes Road and another vehicle coming another way, and Mr. Arbery is in between them. So at some point Mr. Arbery turns around and starts heading back towards Mr. Bryan.
According to Dial, Bryan made statements that Arbery turned around and ran past his truck, and then the McMicheals truck passed him, all going back towards Satilla Drive. At some point, the McMicheals got in front of Ahmaud Arbery, and Bryan turned his truck around too.
So we just heard what the GBI investigator said about the actions of the McMicheals and Roddy. In summary, he stated that the McMicheals saw Arbery running down the street and they recognized him from videos and thought that he was a burglary suspect. Greg then ran into the house and called Travis. They both grabbed firearms and jumped into their truck. They catch up to Arbery and attempt to get him to stop and answer their questions. Arbery, who didn't have any obligation to answer their questions, ran from them. Roddy Bryan, another person who lived in the neighborhood, saw the chase and joined in. This chase ensues for almost 7 minutes, and that's when the now infamous footage picks up.
It's at this point, investigator Dow says Roddy Bryan picked up his phone that had already been recording off of his seat and points it at the McMicheals truck. It's also at this point that Greg McMichael calls 911 for the first time.
The driver's side door is open. Travis McMicheal is there. It is apparent to me he is holding a firearm. His arm is raised as it's in a pointed position at one point. Then then Mr. Arbery is running. He then apparently sees what Travis McMicheal in front of him. Then he changes direction to go around the passenger side of the vehicle. Travis McMicheal then moved from the driver's side, where he's actually standing. When you open the driver's side door, the door is at his back initially in the video, and he's got the shotgun. He then positions himself around the driver's side door towards the front of the truck. You see Mr. Arbery running alongside the passenger side. And again, you see Travis McMicheal has repositioned himself along the front of the truck. Mr. Arbery then comes up to a position, sees Travis McMicheal, then makes the decision and turns and decides to engage Travis McMicheal. As he turns and goes towards Travis McMicheal, you hear a shot. Then you see Travis McMicheal moving backwards with Mr. Arbery. Obviously, they were engaged in a physical confrontation at this point. They go off the screen. You then hear a second shot where you see blood and spray into the screen, a mist of it. Then they come back in to the view of the camera. There, Mr. Arbery is striking Travis McMicheal. There's a struggle going on, and then you see a third shot occur.
Months later.
So according to the GBI agent, the McMicheals chased Arbery for close to 7 minutes. During the chase, Roddy joins in and attempts to block Arbery on multiple occasions. At one point, Roddy even hits Arbery with his vehicle. The chase ends as Travis jumps out of his truck, aiming a loaded firearm at Arbery. Many people who took the McMicheals side of the story fail to acknowledge these facts. They say, why didn't Arbery try to get away? Well, the people with that stance clearly don't know the facts of the case. Arbery did, in fact, attempt to get away from them. Critics of Arbery also say that he was the aggressor. However, as the GBI investigator says, it's Arbery who is still attempting to get away. In the last-ditch effort, he attempts to run around the vehicle for cover because he clearly takes Travis as a serious threat. The GBI agent also notes that it's Travis who moves from the passenger side of the vehicle to the front of the vehicle, all while claiming that he was afraid. Unfortunately, his actions didn't show that he was afraid. During the whole interaction, it was the McMicheals who were the aggressor. After the shooting, the death was ruled a case of self-defense, and all 3 participants were allowed to go home and no charges were filed against them. In the next video, we will take a look at possible reasons why no charges were filed. For these answers, we got to look at DA Jackie Johnson and her history. Now, if you like this content, hit that like, subscribe, and share button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you want to support the channel, you can hit that Cash App and donate. You can send all donations on the Cash App to $LEWIBD 1980. Again, that's $LEWIBD 1980. Thank you guys for your time.